and a very good morning to all of you seated. I've been a quiet observer for some time. I was in the audience, and I saw that all of you were very passive in today's, session. I do hope that, the outcome of this is going to be at least to generate some kind of a productive thinking. And if there are some questions, I think we need to discuss that and come up with some kind of probable solutions for all of us. Thank you, Sita. I think the topic of this morning is to see how the entire country and the world is moving towards technology and technology becoming a part of education. As one of the principles I think Mr. Prabhakar had mentioned, we belong to an era where we grew up without too much of interference of these gadgets, if I may put it that way. And we are the people who are actually educating the present generation. And as I walked in, I heard the last line of the other speaker. We're talking of 21st century skills, and we're equipping these youngsters for jobs that are unknown to all of us. So my basic question here is, are we on the right track? One, let's assess the education system. Two, we all know, the what of education. And unfortunately, as top and senior educationists, we accept what is being given to us. There has to be some kind of a system, there has to be some kind of a standardization. So I'm not one of those educationists who would say it's not required to have something, some kind of a framework given to the entire nation. But I would also say that we can use this framework to our advantage or to our disadvantage. Either we can say, this is what is given and this is the maximum that I can do with it, or we can lash it out and say, well, this is the basic framework. What can I use of this and where can I spring from here? What is it that I can take to my advantage? So the teaching community can actually start working on the curriculum and see what would really interest the children, make them a part of the decision making, and bring in all the other stakeholders. You could have your parents, you could have your management, and of course we call the shots as educationists. But then what happens is that it becomes our little system. It's important to understand what we're teaching, it's important to understand why we're teaching and how we're teaching. I think today's topic is more to do with the how of education, how we're actually bringing in technology, how else can things be imparted. I'd like to make a statement here. Use of technology is extremely important in today's world. We believe that most jobs require skills that would enable students to be able to use technology to climb up the ladder and to reach their life's goal. But then, what is this life's goal is a big question mark to me. If it's just to procure those jobs, if it's just to become the top person in that particular company, well, maybe it's going to aid you to a certain extent. But I think what is more pertinent for me is how we're going to be using technology and use it only where it is required. I'll give you a simple example. The other day I walked into one of my science classes, and like all schools, I think most of us have smart boards, and you have teachers using them quite effectively. And I just sat behind and I was observing this lesson on displacement of water. So she was showing them and the kids were excited, and they watched how they were dropping things into the water and how the weight of the particular object would displace as much water, so on and so forth. And I came out, the kids were excited, my teacher was excited that she was using technology. I came out feeling really lost, because I could recollect how my teacher had done it. We had the liberty, I studied in this beautiful school called Rishi Valley, and we had this opportunity to tell our teachers that today the lesson would be outdoors, and the teacher had to just oblige. So we had the same topic when I was a kid, and my memory went back to those days. And we said we're going to the swimming pool. Obviously, he had something in his mind. He said, let me teach them about displacement. And when we went there and he taught us his beautiful lesson, we all decided to jump into the swimming pool, and we pushed the teacher also into the pool. And then we said we've understood the lesson. I'm not quite sure, without that real hands-on, whether kids just by viewing something, would really be learning as much. I'm not saying that all school need a swimming pool. I'm just taking an example. So you say, where's the swimming pool? You know, I'm not talking. I'm only giving you an example of what can be done hands-on. Give them that. Why bring in the technology? Use technology where it should be. Use it only to an extent that it needs to be there, where we cannot, you know, probably explain it to them in a better manner. For example, if you're teaching of neutrons and protons and things like that, yes, it's an abstract concept. Many children probably would not be understanding. So when you have it in a three-dimensional form and you're showing it in class, well, great. Because some of us who cannot visualize something which is abstract, yes, it's going to aid us, you know, it's going to help us in learning better. So I feel that technology is important in today's scenario, but an overdose of it is probably something that we should all be very watchful of. Because are we creating a generation of people who are getting addicted to gadgets? Are we creating a generation, and I talk of the generation world over, who are becoming so dependent that they cannot do without it? You know, I also would like to recollect about the PISA ratings and assessments and things like that. I was in Delhi, you know, last year, if I'm not mistaken, and everybody was discussing about, this was a conference on international assessments. So we had people from world over and speakers as to how their country had stood in the rating, what needs to be done, and of course, as part of CBSE, we were also there as principals. And the first speaker was from Delhi IIT. He walked in. He didn't use the laptop. There was no presentation. And believe me, you know, the audience was awestruck by everything he had to say about our past, by everything he had to say about what a country we were. But what is happening to our present scenario is what we need to ponder upon and see how we can take that forward. The third speaker, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was this gentleman from abroad, do not want to mention the country, who came in with this lovely presentation. And what could happen? Power cut. So before the generators could be on, you know, he had nothing to say. He was like so taken aback, couldn't handle the situation, and he was just pacing up and down, and of course in about a minute's time it was restored. And then he said, I just wish I knew what to do in that 1 minute, because devoid of my presentation and technology, you know, there was nothing up here, which I thought was a sad state of affairs. So to me, I feel it's important to use these gadgets. And today you find in schools we have smart boards, you have school management system for data collection, you have tablets that have come in, and you have computer-aided learning, you know, lots of companies pouring in. Yes, it's good. It's good when you can afford it. It's good to give the children exposure. But let's not encourage them to an extent where they stop thinking for themselves, where they start exploring for themselves. You know, because I think all these wonderful discoveries that we are talking about have come through observation, have come through personal, you know, trial and error, and it's not totally dependent. I would say not totally dependent on gadgets. So let's not create a generation that will be funked if something were to go wrong with technology. I'll give you another example of walking into, these are just observations. I'm sorry I'm telling you all these little snippets of experiences that I've had. We were in Singapore, and we had taken the children there for an excursion, and we'd gone to a mall. And after they finished shopping, everybody was lining up, you know, to make the billing, and something went wrong with the computer. So there were two little things that the last kid, and we were to board the bus and we were getting late for the airport. And two little items that the child had purchased. It was so simple to do a mental calculation, but no, they would not do it. And they said, no, we have to just wait for the system to get set right, and then we will do the billing, because this will create confusion. You know, so that whole paranoia about if my system doesn't work, what if there's a technological snag, where do we stand, is not what we should be, you know, in a situation to take ahead, but devoid of this. Use it to an advantage, use it like a tool, and let a tool remain a tool. But let us help create a generation of thinkers, devoid of this, but aided with this, yes, maybe something can come better. So the thinking process, the exploration of every aspect of education should come in hands-on, beautifully experiential, so on and so forth. And these things can help us probably comprehend areas where there are a little bit of darkness, probably help us in collating data. These kind of things can be done very well with technology. I will give you one last example. Because to me, life is an experience, and all we observe from all, everything that happens in our life should help us arrive at some kind of a decision, whether it's right or wrong, and then take it ahead. I was very fortunate to be talking to a very famous scientist called Mr. Murthy. And he said that in one of his discussions with the President and the Prime Minister of the country, they said that, probably India is not geared to launch this rocket into space, and hence a part of the technology is coming from X country. So maybe now we're running short of time. We'll just get the scientists over from XYZ country and somewhere else, and probably we'll get ahead with what is expected of the country to do. This man was so disappointed that he actually put in his papers the next hour itself. And they were taken aback. And they said, why are you doing this? They said, because when the heads of the country do not have faith in us, then it's not worth working for it. So then they said, are you game? Are you going to take the challenge? This is the deadline that we have. They said, yes, we have brilliant scientists. My colleagues XYZ, this is how we're going to go about it. So in the next couple of days after after they got the green signal, they actually went ahead. And everything was assembled somewhere. It was to be brought to the place of launch. And there was a little bit of a height difference. And there, oof, all the technology that went in to launch something into the universe was now this little technical snack, because they just didn't know how to fit it into the area. And who was it that came up with the solution? He says, somebody like, like an office assistant, a very plain guy who had come in from some village and had moved to this place, actually came up and gave them a solution as to how the ramp can be changed, and that would cost only so much, so you don't need to, tamper with the roof and everything else, and you don't need to tilt this particular, contraption that they'd come out with, and this is a simple solution. So all the heads of the country then were, actually taking note of it, and they said, yes, it seems practical, and they actually went ahead. These are inside stories, that actually came to light. And I share this with children because, that is what should instigate them and, excite them to start thinking different. Think and then create, innovate, because gadgets can only be a sense of support. After all, who created the gadgets? It's the human brain. Thank you.